All right, my name is Jason. I'm here to talk to you about the issue of...
Oh, wait, just so you're not, I'm not treating you favorably.
Yes.
You're swear to tell me the truth, Jason?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, I'm here to talk to you about the issue of deterrence. Some say that the death penalty can be used as a deterrent to crime. In fact, that's not the case. There was a recent study in the Wall Street Journal that said basically for every execution there are 70 less deaths. But the problem with that survey was that most variables such as the presence of violence in the community, the availability of education, the availability of mental health care, these variables were completely ignored. And it was therefore a really faulty survey. Others have kind of said that, well, whatever the surveys say, we should expect that the death penalty is a deterrent because, well, people fear death more than any other punishment. And in fact, that's not really true either. It doesn't really follow that just because death is a serious punishment and everyone is kind of afraid of it, that it's going to be the greatest deterrent. In fact, studies have shown that at a certain point, life in prison is about equal with the death penalty. And thirdly, this also assumes that people that are committing these crimes are making kind of an analysis before they make the crime, which is also not true. In fact, they just kind of group things into categories and say, oh, well, I might be punished, but that doesn't really matter. I'm going to go ahead and do this. Or they don't even think about the punishment at all. So I think we find that from these arguments, the issue of deterrence is really thrown out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jason. Yeah, the court takes that very seriously, that these so-called deterrence studies that try to show how much one execution deters it's a very strange calculation that society is going to have to make to figure out how many executions would take our murder rate as close to zero as we'd like. That's it's a very strange calculus for the legislature and the judicial branch to take under advisement. So that's very scary. Thank you for the testimony, witness. Do we have another witness? Okay.
Good afternoon, court. My name is Brian McCann. I'm with the Austin chapter of the Campaign to End the Death Penalty.
You're who, Brian?
Yes? Oh.
Thank you.
Okay, I do.
Yes, I know you do.
There you are. I think when we're talking about the death penalty in Texas or elsewhere, I think taking in our surroundings for a moment is a pretty instructive way to do so. A few feet in front of us, we have a memorial to Confederate fallen dead. A little north on UT's campus.
Is that what that is down there?
That is in fact what that is, to those who died fighting for slavery. On UT's campus, we have statues to Jefferson Davis and Robert E. Lee. And I think that's important to keep in mind when we look at the kind of world that the death penalty operates in. It operates in a world that still is very racist. And I want to talk to you about, yes?
Can the court interrupt? Is there a statue for Abraham Lincoln or Ulysses S. Grant?
Not that I'm aware of. There is one of Martin Luther King hidden on the east side of campus, but that's it. But
the east side for Martin Luther King statue.
I want to talk to you all about how racist the death penalty is. Something that I think a lot of times is overlooked when people try to argue that the death penalty is a just form of punishment that treats all citizens equally. Currently, according to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund's most recent study, 45% of people on death row in the United States are white, and about 42% are African American. A statistic that at first glance may seem pretty innocuous. It's about a 50-50 split. However, let's think about that in relation to our own population here in the United States, in which 75% of U.S. citizens are white, and about 12% are African American. This highlights a clear disparity in terms of who is getting death sentences and who is not. Furthermore, recent studies have shown that 20% of African Americans on the nation's death rows are sentenced to death by all white juries. Moreover, the American Bar Association found in 1998 that about 96% of states found a racial disparity in terms of victim and culprit ratios where death sentences were concerned. In fact, study after study has demonstrated that a white victim and a black culprit is the most likely combination when you control for everything else to generate a death sentence. So for those who say that the death penalty is about victims, about giving closure to victims, statistics like that suggest that certain victims are valued much more deeply than others in this society. Other statistics tell us that prosecutors are 5 times more likely to pursue the death penalty with African American defendants than white defendants. Really, when we look to the death penalty, when we look to the people who are filling death row cells, those small 6x7 cells, they generally are not white individuals, wealthy individuals, but they are marginalized individuals, African Americans, poor people who couldn't afford adequate representation. The death penalty is the most recent expression of Jim Crow style justice that we see in Gina, that we saw back in the Jim Crow era, and we saw during slavery, and that is one of many reasons why we have to fight for its abolition. Thank you.
Woo! Thank you. Those statistics are very useful in the court's evaluation of the death penalty, so thank you very much, witness again. Is there another one? Is there somebody behind? Yeah. Okay. Please state your name.
Preston Mitchum.
And you swear to tell the truth?
Swear to tell the truth.
Thank you.
May it please the court.
Thank you.
The death penalty is a violation of the 8th Amendment's cruel and unusual punishment. In many cases, violate the 5th and 14th Amendment's due process clause. The death penalty is racist, classist, and at many times convicts the innocent. How can a country that prides itself so much on freedom and equality executes its own people? It is a violation of our human rights and our civil rights. The death penalty is a hypocrisy to our already unequal system of justice. I can kill someone and that's all right. And that's bad. But the legal system can execute me and that's justified? Contradiction and idiocracy at its finest. America does not want to deal with Guantanamo Bay because it's located in Cuba. Well, guess what, America? We have our own Guantanamo Bay happening, and its name is the death penalty, and it must stop today. Thank you.
That's a good job. Interesting comparison. The court finds that very compelling to compare that to Guantanamo, which is such a despicable thing, but it's the human rights violations are also happening here. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Evelyn Israel, and I promise to tell the truth.
Thank you.
I would like to say today that the death penalty is unjust because it assumes that there's no possibility that people can change. And without the belief that people can change, there's no hope for the future. If we think about all the bad things that have happened in the world and all the horrible injustices that have gone on throughout history, like slavery and the genocides that have gone on, and we believe that they couldn't change and that the people in the societies that have created them couldn't change, how could we even go on living? And why would I even be up here today speaking? The death penalty assumes that nobody who is on death row could change and that they could improve and not commit the same crimes in the future. The idea of the whole prison system is supposed to be to reform individuals so that they can become better and so that they can exist and not cause harm in society. And that's why we have people who have limited jail sentences and we let them out. Why is it for a select few we don't think that they could ever change? And I just think that that's, first of all, completely unfair, but also unrealistic, because everyone has the possibility for change, and without that belief, we can have no hope in the future or in anyone.
Thank you.